Welcome back. Breakfast Extra here for a Sunday edition. On our first big story, we take a critical look at the Nigerian economy. The rosy picture painted by senior government officials are now being replaced by harsh realities, as reflected in the economic report from the National Bureau of Statistics. Nigeria's economy is currently at a breaking point. Multinational companies are leaving, local businesses are struggling, and job losses are mounting.
Now, the economy's frail health is evident in various sectors, and this downturn didn't happen overnight. It is a result of years of inconsistent policies, security challenges, soaring inflation, and rising poverty levels. And so to discuss these pressing issues and potential solutions, we have with us today on the show Onome Ohuworiole. He's a senior analyst, Money Africa. We also have with us, joining us via video chat, Oluseun Onugbeide. He's a director of budget. A very good morning to you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Morning.
It's a pleasure.
Very much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to throw this question out to the both of you, gentlemen, right? And I'm going to start with Oluseun, because he's been, just been patient with us on video chat. So, given the current economic challenges in Nigeria, including the exodus of multinational companies and the struggles of local businesses as well, how did we reach this breaking point?
And I think you made the point clearly that this is a product of years of poor investments in the economy. We also have not applied long-term thinking in how we deal with issues of the economy. And how we build productivity as a country. Over the years, we had an oil industry that we treated like with rentier mindset. So we only extracted. We didn't do our best to secure the environment. We didn't do our best to even attract new investments in that space. We also did not look at how big our non-oil sector can be. What other things would we sell to the world apart from oil? Over the years, everybody just keep looking for a shortcut into the answers. And when revenues dipped, the previous government, and even including this current government, they went to the CBN and took overdraft they are not backed by any level of assets. So that is where we are. Weak productivity over the years. Poor long-term thinking and lack of fiscal discipline. When you put all of those three things together, you are going to just get the kind of outcomes that we have at this point.
Now, Onome, I'm going to come to you next, right? He just talked about policy inconsistencies being highlighted as one of the major issues. Can you elaborate a bit on this, inconsistencies that has affected investor confidence just over the years?
Okay, so, I think I take a slightly different approach. If you're going to summarize the issues, the challenges, I would say we've run away from hard decisions as a country. And unfortunately, we're in a position where we have to take all the hard decisions at once. So if you look at subsidy, we removed the subsidy, right? New and this administration came on board. Your subsidy is back. It's back because your exchange rate has moved. We haven't addressed if we're going to keep it, how we're keeping it, how's the NNPC keeping it. So those are things that we need to address. So if you just look at the subsidy alone, that's the biggest pressure point we're facing. And unfortunately, we haven't had the administration come out to say, look, here's what happened, here's our goal. We've had to shift the post. Here's what we need to do. But that's just a clear example of the Nigerian thing. So we have a goal, we work towards the goal, we miss the goal, and we say, let's push it down, and let's push it down, and let's push it down until you can't take the pressure anymore.
Let me come to Mr. Oluseun. Mr. Oluseun, now the current administration has proposed several reforms, including tax reforms aimed at reducing the burden on businesses. How do you think that this is going to affect businesses? Is this the right move, or is there more that could be done by the administration?
We're yet to see the full draft, but I've been part of the consultation, and I've had some side conversations with the presidential advisor on the tax reform or the fiscal reform committee. And I think a lot of the things being said make sense. They want to bring down the CIT, in my own view, which makes sense. They also want to ensure that those within a certain cadre, with a certain income band or revenue band, do not pay VAT, which also makes a lot of sense. But that will means that there will be pressure on a certain band of income, which means there will be an increase in the VAT rate for a certain band. I guess that would definitely now be the point of contestation, because nobody wants to pay additional taxes. But what we need, and I think my feedback is that we are poor. Our ability to collect data and to be effective at it is very, very poor. So even if all of these ideas sounds great on paper, how are we ensuring that people are able to understand those who don't want to game the system, those who have the right revenue? How do we give enough sensitization? Some people even know how to do impute VAT, how to be able to get VAT refunds, how the FRS is sensitized on those things, especially at I won't say the SME level, but the medium level, the M in the SME levels, we are definitely going to still be affected by this new VAT rate. So I feel like it looks well thought, but there's a whole lot of sensitization and conversation that needs to happen. A lot of states will also have to kick into this, because some of them are pushing back. They have to see clearly that this all is in the best of the economy. What we need is to enhance productivity. I'm big on also raising taxes, raising revenue, but without fiscal discipline, now we have even enhancing local productivity effectively. We can't just we are trying to tax nothing, or taxing wrongly. So I believe, as we're also thinking of fiscal reform and taxes, we're also being big on how do we get this Nigerian economy to be productive? How do we deepen the private sector? And most importantly, also when the money comes to the hand of the government, how are they much more disciplined about the use of those funds? Yeah.
Okay, so Olusegun, now I heard you talk about fiscal reform and all of that. Now these tax amendments that are being thought, or reforms that are being thought, are they the main, perhaps maybe the main course of action that should be taken? Are there other, for instance, you talk about taxes, however, there are so many agencies that businesses have to tend to, dues for this, dues for that, so much more, that when you look at everything accumulatively, you're paying so much, even with the reforms enacted. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Mr. Idele, I've spoken to him a few times, and he's been big on the fact that multiple taxation is a huge burden for every entrepreneur of every businesses. So I expect that in the report, that in whatever will be brought forward, it will be clear how they're going to reduce, the number of taxes. I know there was a time they muted the FRS should take all taxes, and I think there was a huge pushback from MDs and agencies from that. I expect that the paper that would come out would mean that they streamline the number of taxes being collected. But there are other bigger things to be done. I'm big on fiscal discipline and accountability, and the government taking the much more decent approach into use of public revenues. Because even if you raise 150 trillion and 20 trillion today, without the right fiscal discipline, you cannot get the kind of results that you want. You would keep having poor capital efficiency, you keep spending in the wrong way. National Assembly member will keep, imputing a constituency project into trillions of naira in there. It will not serve any form of planning purpose. And that's why I said in my beginning that we have a planning problem. We're not a country that plans. You can't tell me this is what Nigeria will be in the next 5, 10, 20 years. It looks like we just big things on the go. Subsidy was there for years. At the point it didn't make sense. At the point everybody had consensus that, we have to now let it go. But for years, nobody wanted to do it. Now we have done it with exchange rate devaluation. And at the end of the day, we are now figuring out that, this is going to even spike subsidy much more, because definitely you will need even much more naira to be able to procure the goods. So we having more dollars to procure the goods. So we are in that situation where it's really challenging on the side of the government, but they also have to deal with people in trust and ensure that the use of public resources carry the whole of discipline. I think I want to be big on that. Yeah.
Right. Let me come to you, Nome, and ask this question. Now, with all of this economic reforms that we've seen, from the removal of subsidy to the floating of the naira, unification of the foreign exchange, what has happened, over time is, exacerbated inflation rate, heightened inflation rate, and, by extension, inflationary cost of living in terms of, food prices and the rest. And this is now hampered on the average Nigerian's purchasing power. And now with the NLC and organized labor clamoring for an increase in minimum wage, do you see this in aiding, when it comes to increasing the purchasing power of the average Nigerian, or better yet, help to curb subsidy or inflation, I beg your pardon, in some way?
I mean, I think on the contrary, it's going to increase it, but in a way, the government is caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. So because of the sharp inflation we've had, that minimum wage needs to go up. But the challenge is, if you increase the minimum wage, and you're going to see some pushback from the states, many states in the country can't pay a new or any of the proposed figures we're hearing for the minimum wage. The states can't pay it. The states are going to say, look, we need the subsidy off. Now, you remove the subsidy, you increase the minimum wage, you're back at square one because prices then go up. So really, it's a case of we just have no choice but to swallow all the bitter pills all at once, because let's be real, 30,000 naira can't give a decent life anywhere in this country as of today. Anywhere. So what do? So you have no choice but to raise the minimum wage.
Some would argue also 62 naira can't, it can't be it can't be even substantial,
Yeah, I totally agree, because what's the cost of a decent meal a day? Let's say maybe 1,000, 1,500. Take a family of 5, multiply it by 30. What do you have? Pushing over 100,000. That's just food. We've not talked of healthcare. We've not talked of accommodation. We've not talked of education. So reality is, yes, you can argue that, but I'm of the opinion that take all the bitter pills once and then pick what you... right now, we're just going to have to live with the high inflation. When you look at all the issues that you have to deal with, which is the easiest issue to solve. But interestingly, what's driving inflation is food prices. And why is food expensive? It's a combination of reasons. You have security issues, you have the higher exchange rates, you have the fact that farmers can't produce, you even have the fact that cost of transportation, the bottlenecks and all that. So some things can be fixed quickly, some things going to take time to fix, but you just have to live with it.
Let me come to Oluseun. Now, Mr. Oluseun, you're the DG for budget, and you guys have tracked Nigeria's budget for the past many years, especially as where these monies go. Let's take a look at agriculture, for instance. Is Nigeria doing enough when it comes to agriculture? Later today, we'll be talking about food crisis in Nigeria, the food insecurity in Nigeria. Is the government doing enough? Are they putting enough money where it should be spent? For instance, agriculture. I have a follow-up question to that, but please, can you answer that first?
Thanks so much. We're not doing enough, and I think that's one of the key issues where that the government needs to address quickly. To remove fuel subsidy, you should have done some few things right. A part of that is the minimum wage. A part of that is also the food security and food inflation. Food inflation didn't start in this current administration. It's been bubbling since the previous administration. It's been because if you look at Nigeria's inflation matrix, food is the biggest component in that. So we have food inflation has been there. So if I'm going to remove fuel subsidy, at least I would think of the government should have thought of 3 things. One is, what is my way to tackle food inflation? Secondly, how do I ease move of transportation? And third one is the minimum wage. At least you want to have clear direction, not a year after when you have made a pronouncement. We're still going back and forth on all of these things. We don't have full answers, clear-cut answers about those 3 issues. And that's why, even people know, everyone has known this, that the removal of fuel subsidy is going to have significant inflationary impact on the citizens, because also general price level in the economy is going to rise. But, how do you now forecast and how do you think through those situations? We have not done that. And that's one of these you see with agriculture. If you look at the agricultural budget, it's a disaster. Because you see, when you are expected that policy, should drive its use of public resources, it's not what you get to see. Say agricultural ministry constructing solar panel, agricultural ministry is trying to build a solar pump water in urban areas that have no business with. Those are the situations you find. The agency, Ministry of Agriculture, maybe because it's been led by a former legislator, has the biggest insertions by the National Assembly for constituency projects, for things that mostly don't have nothing to do with agriculture. And that's the same thing we have been saying over the years. There's no fiscal discipline in this government. Nobody's holding the line to say, this is what our plan is, and this is how we're going to stay true to our plan end to end. And that's why we can't get the results we want.
So, Lucian, you're saying that the agricultural ministry has no focus. But how do you suggest that Nigeria could, for instance, focus on agriculture by getting people into the farms, making the capitals of most states less attractive, making policies attractive for farming and farmers? What do you suggest so that we can get more food and more jobs would be created as well? What's your suggestion on that?
My suggestion, I would say three things. Look at the input subsidy. So a lot of things I've heard is the cost of fertilizer has significantly rose in recent years. So you have to look at input subsidy in some sort of way. So give cheaper, easy to access fertilizers for those who want to embark on agriculture, especially food production. The second thing is also have a look at travel logistics. That is a major component. And then the government has needed a youth task force. If something is being produced at 150 naira per kilo in maybe Plateau State, how do you ensure that within a reasonable margin it gets to a market in an urban area? So that's something second that you have to build up also. And then the third thing, in my own view, is also security. You need to figure out a way to protect farmers and allow them to be able to farm in a much more secure environment. And I think a bigger thing to this is to have diversity. To have some resilience across the country. There's too much concentration of agricultural production. The burden is put significantly on a region of the country. And I think it's also time that the government will look at that from a policy perspective, that our food production centers should be well distributed across the country. And I think that's something that the government also needs to do. It doesn't mean that they don't solve the insecurity issues or they don't fix, because if the northern part, especially the north-central part, is the food basket of this country, it doesn't mean that the poverty issues have been resolved by those significant food production. It just means that it's still been in a productive way. Yeah.
Now, I hate to cut you, but we've run out of time. I would have even loved for us to touch a bit more on the mass exodus of Nigerian professionals as well as the multinationals and what it would mean in terms of sending messages to investors outside the country. I think that's another conversation we can have for another time. But Olusegun and Onome, many thanks for coming on. We appreciate you for doing this with us, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.